Have you ever dreamed of growing your own food, raising your own animals, or living more sustainably? Well, I think that 2025 is the perfect year to make that dream a reality. Starting a homestead from scratch might sound intimidating, but I'm here to show you how you can do it. Let's dive in.
Always works.
So, why should you start a homestead in 2025? You need to ask yourself why. What is the reason that you want to start a homestead? Because that why is what's going to keep you motivated. If you don't know the reason why you want to start one, when things get tough and times get hard, you're going to quit. So I've got a really good example for you. I love working out. I enjoy working out a lot, but I have a certain reason that I do. If I didn't know what my why was, eventually I would probably fall off from working out. So I work out normally about 6 times a week, and I've been doing that for a while. The reason why I do it is because I saw my father's health and I saw how he had diabetes for a very large majority of his life. And I realized that I didn't want to have diabetes. I didn't want to be a diabetic. I saw a lot of the hardships that he went through. Later on in life, he started getting fingers cut off, toes cut off, and eventually he got his leg cut off. And I remember as a young child watching him every day, pricking himself with needles and checking his blood sugar. And that is one of the motivations that causes me to work out about 6 times a week. Also, I like to think about my wife and my kids. I want to be able to protect them. I want to be able to take care of them. And I know that one of the greatest ways to do that is to make sure I maintain a good physical shape. And also want to be around if and when I have grandkids, I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to be around them and to enjoy them. So I think about that. And then I also think about just me fulfilling God's purpose, right? God's purpose for my life. I want to make sure that I'm in good health and in good shape to be able to do that, whatever it is He's called me to do. But it's going to be very hard to do those things if I'm not in good shape. Even if I fall off and there's times that I may not work out and there may be a week that I may miss a few days, my why is my North Star. So every time when I get off track, I look at my why, and that keeps me on a path that's about working out. And so that's the same mentality you need to have when it comes to homesteading. Your why is going to be your North Star. So when you get off track and you start getting lazy during this homesteading process, when you refocus and you recognize what your why is, it's a lot easier to come back on path. So maybe your why is your health. Maybe that's going to be your North Star. Maybe you're doing it because you want to have better health. You want to work on your health. And sometimes doing things with homesteading when it comes to growing your own vegetables and growing your own meat, that works for some people. For some people, that helps them to maintain their health. For some people, it may not be as physical, but it may be mental. And for some people, they need something to do throughout the week that helps them with their mental health. So for some people, it may be more of a therapeutic thing. It may be more of a mental health reason, and that's why they want to do homesteading. For me, it puts me in a better mental state when I recognize that I've had some tasks that I have to do through the week, and it's not necessarily the work that I enjoy, but it's more so seeing the finished product. So for me, when it comes to let's say growing a vegetable garden, it's not the weeds that I like picking out. It's not that I like, watering the garden sometimes and, going through the labor of taking care of the garden. It's actually that finished product and seeing how, a tomato has grown and now I can enjoy the fruits of my labor. So for me, it's more of a mental thing that kind of keeps me going when it comes to homesteading. For some of you, it may be that you want to homestead because you want to have a better connection with your food, right? We go to the grocery store. We don't know where our food comes from. They could be pumping all kinds of chemicals and injections into the animals and the foods that we eat. And for some of us, It may just be that we like to have that connection to the food that we're eating. Some of you want to homestead because you want better tasting food. There's something about eating tomatoes out of my garden that I just enjoy so much. You know, anytime I have like canned tomato soup from the store, I really don't like it. I actually don't eat it. But when I make tomato soup from my garden, from the fresh tomatoes that I've grown in my garden, I actually enjoy it a lot. And to me, like there's nothing better than just getting a sliced tomato from your garden and just putting it on your sandwich that you made during the summer day. And you know, when it comes to eating tomatoes out of the store, I personally don't like tomatoes out of the store. It's not really my favorite thing to eat. Also, the eggs. You know, I noticed that when I have eggs from my chickens, the yolk tends to be brighter and the egg tends to be a little bit more flavorful. So for some of you, it may be that you just want better tasting food, and I can kind of see that with gardening and raising your own animals. Another good reason to homestead, if you have kids, I think that it is really a good thing for kids to learn how to take care of animals and plants. It gives them a sense of responsibility that they normally would not have. Also, some of the kids that you have, they may develop interest in the skills that you have when it comes to gardening or taking care of animals or working on things around the house or any kind of mechanical things. I have a son. He has kind of gained an interest when it comes to gardening. He actually wants to create his own little garden area in our yard. And for his birthday, he actually asked his mother just to order some seeds from a catalog that we got him from a seed company. And that's very interesting to see. I know when I was a child, when I was a teenager and I was his age, I didn't really have an interest in things like that. I was kind of caught up in just playing video games and hanging with my friends and watching TV and looking at sports and not looking at sports, but playing sports. And he likes doing those things too, but he really loves doing the seeds and the gardening thing. And it's really an interesting thing to see. And then some people may want to homestead because they're unsure about our country's future, right? You have some people who are really big when it comes to prepping and storing materials and stocking materials and growing skills that will make them more self-sufficient. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't homestead because of that reason, but I do know that there's some people who have that prepper mentality, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I do want to give a word of caution. You don't want to base this homesteading journey based out of fear, right? Because if you are nervous about the future and that's why you homestead and you're fearful about what's going to come in the future, I don't think it's really good to build an interest based off of fear, because let's say if that fear disappears in the next 2-3 years, well, then your interest may disappear with it as well. So sometimes it's not good to really build an interest because you're afraid. I think it needs to be a little bit more deeper than just fear that drives and motivates you to homestead. So I want to talk a little bit about overcoming obstacles. And we all have those obstacles in our lives when it comes to starting something new. You may be saying to yourself, I don't have enough land. Now, I really want to take that excuse out of your mind right now. If you don't have enough land, start off small. Maybe you don't have, a big piece of property, but you have a small balcony. Start off with some potted plants. I don't want you to use that as an excuse to not build a skill where you're at right now. And so maybe you don't have enough land to raise chickens. Maybe you have a garage, right? So in that garage, you can just raise rabbits. It's about really just starting right now where you're at. Start building a small skill now where you're at right now. I remember when I first started gardening, I didn't live in the country like I live now. We lived a few minutes from downtown in the neighborhood, and I used my backyard and I gardened. That was such a good experience, and I learned so much from that. And that skill ended up transforming to other skills. So after gardening, that's when we took on chickens. And then after we took on chickens, then we took on sheep. But it started with that gardening. It started in the beginning when I first started without a whole bunch of land, without living in the country. There's one YouTube channel that my wife used to watch called, I believe it's called Weed'em and Reap, but it's this YouTube channel about this family who lives out in Phoenix, Arizona, and they only have 1 acre of land and they lived in the neighborhood. And the neat thing about it is that they have pretty much a homestead in the back of their yard. They've got chickens, goat, turkey. They have a garden, and I think they have a few other animals as well. But that's really interesting because they use that 1 acre of land to its max potential, and they didn't use living in the neighborhood as an excuse. They didn't use not living in the country as an excuse. They used what they had and they built a really good homestead and a really big YouTube channel as well, based off of what they had. Some of you may feel that you're not really experienced enough when it comes to working on things and being handy. You might say to yourself, well, I'm not handy enough. You don't need to be. You don't need to be handy enough. Let me encourage you that you can learn as you go. There's so many free resources and so many things online that you can look on that can really help you through this. As for me, I don't have a background when it comes to electrical work or carpentry or raising chickens, raising sheep. I don't have any experience in any of those things. No experience when it comes to mechanical work, but I learned as time went by. And as time goes by, you can gain a little bit of knowledge here, a little bit of knowledge here. And then from a few years, you'll notice that you've learned so many things because you just simply just went out of your way. You just went out of your way to apply yourself. And that's kind of what I did with my life. And I have been doing this for years now. And I'm way more knowledgeable now that I'm almost in my 40s than when I was in my 20s when I started. So I want to encourage you, start right now where you're at. The last obstacle that I can think of that some of you may be thinking is that you can't afford homesteading. And yes, I think it can be expensive if you want it to be. I think that you can go as deep or as shallow in this thing as you want to. You don't have to buy brand new things. You can always go on Facebook Marketplace and look for things that have been used. And also, you don't have to start with big animals. Chickens are relatively inexpensive. Sure, you have to have a chicken coop and you have to buy chicken feed and things like that. But instead of starting with 20 chickens, just start off with 5 or 6 and just build a really small coop. Don't go deep into this thing at first, because if you go too deep, then it's going to be expensive. But if you start small, then you'll figure things out. If you start in small increments, you'll realize ways that you can save money as you go. People get burnt out sometimes from homesteading because they start doing everything at one time. They want to get the garden, they want to get the livestock, they want to get the chickens all at once, and that's just a huge mistake. Start off with just 1 or 2 things and start off small. So now that we went over the obstacles that you may encounter when it comes to homesteading, I want to talk about practical ways to starting your homestead. So the first thing that you need to do is start with a plan. Are you going to start with chickens? Are you going to start with rabbits? Are you going to start by gardening? So I said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Don't start off doing everything at once. Just choose 1 skill, maybe 2 skills, and learn how to do those things well. Choose 1 or 2 things that are manageable. But here's the thing. You have to start. You have to start. So go to the Dollar General, buy a shovel, buy a rake, go to Lowe's, buy some gardening equipment, or go to your local farming store, buy a few chicks. But start with small things at first. Don't start huge. Just buy a few things that can just get you started. And just look up videos and instructions online that help you build the skill up that you're interested in doing. When I first started gardening, I would just look up videos online and find instructions online when it came to gardening and That's how I built that skill up. I didn't build it by going to a gardening course or gardening class. I just looked online. I looked online and I started. And I also will go to local urban farms to get inspiration. I just went to different gardens and just observed what they did and how their gardens look like, and even asked them questions on what they do to, make their tomatoes big, or, what they would do to grow raspberries and blackberries. Another practical step would just be use what you have. Look around your yard. Maybe you have a couple of pieces of lumber that you can use and you can build your first garden bed. If you want to start a garden, maybe you can start seeds in your house. Just use reusable containers, maybe like yogurt cups, or maybe containers that you have bought from the store that you normally would throw away. Just use some of those things. You don't have to go out and buy everything. And the last step that I can think of that can help you get started is to join a community. Now, this is something that I wish I would have done when I first started, because I feel like I would have saved a lot of time and would have avoided a lot of mistakes. But I think that when you get around like-minded people who are trying to accomplish similar goals, it's a lot easier to progress, right? You learn from the mistakes that other people have done. And so you don't have to go through the same mistakes that they went through. And they can kind of teach you what they've learned because they're further ahead in the process. So find a community. I think that would be a very helpful thing to get you started in your journey. So now I want to have a call to action. I want you to take at least one step from this video and apply it to your life today. I challenge you to plan actionable steps that you can take within the next 7 days. Don't watch this video and decide to do nothing. Don't let excuses hold you back. If you don't have a backyard, start with a potted garden right on your porch. You shouldn't let another year pass by without creating some momentum. Procrastination and laziness can stop you from accomplishing something huge in 2025. So don't do that. I want to read a passage of scripture to you from Proverbs 24. I think it'll speak to you. Proverbs chapter 24, verses 30 through 34 says, I passed by the field of the sluggard and by the vineyard of the man lacking sense. And behold, it was completely overgrown with thistles. Its surface was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. When I saw, I reflected upon it. I looked and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then your poverty will come as a robber, and your want like an armed man. It doesn't take much laziness to wreck your life. Make 2025 the most productive year of your life. This proverb is about a lazy man who mismanages his time. Just look at the picture that the proverb is painting here. Instead of working hard, his land was destroyed because of the laziness that he had. And I believe that this picture of his land was not only a reflection of the land that he had, it also was a reflection of his life. His life was in shambles because he didn't use his time wisely. And I don't want 2025 to end and you to look back over the year and you see nothing but failure. I heard one YouTuber say, the best time to make a change in your life was yesterday. And the second best time to make a change in your life is today. I want to encourage you today. Make that change in your life today. See you in the next video. If you like what you saw today, subscribe and tap that notification bell. Until next time, stay diligent.
Want more? Watch one of these videos next. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated.